Hello everyone, welcome to LINEART. That's what we're covering today. We're just going to be sitting down and talking about this subject, going over some tips, some tricks. I think what I was asked and what I was asked to go into specifically was colouring your line art. I do have quite a few tips for that. There's quite a few different ways you can do it depending on how confident you are in your colours and also how your general aesthetic overall of your artwork, what you want that to look like. So before we go into the colouring side of line art, I do want to go into my general tips and tricks. First of all, we have gone over this in a previous video, finding your brush. Now, I've showed you some of my favourite websites. We've got this one here. We've also got this one, which is very, very popular, but honestly, both websites have hundreds and hundreds of options for you to go through. Most of them are all free, so you can just go in, give them a try. But of course, this is a very important step, especially if you do work with a lot of line art. It can completely change the way your artwork looks, just the different styles of line art and how it can affect your artwork as well. Another general tip is varying your line weight. Now, this is a really important tip. Of course, if you have a very cartoonish style, if you want your line art to be consistently that size, that shape, this tip does not apply to you. However, a massive tip that I have is varying your line weight. A lot of the times when you're sketching, amazing and lovely it is with all of the sparkles and how much they love it, and then they do their line art and it looks nothing like the original sketch. You don't like it anymore, you throw it out the window and a seagull picks it up, carries it off and turns it into part of his nest. Now, of course, we don't want to be doing that all the time. If you do the line art, it doesn't quite look the way that you envision it, vary your line weight. When I tell you, this makes all of the difference. It was the amount of times where I have done this where I hate my line art, and then I add some line weight variety to it, where it's lighter, where the light's coming from, you want to keep it a little bit thinner, and then where the shadows will begin, or where you have lines meeting, one horizontal, one vertical, I'd recommend adding some depth there. Honestly, it will completely change it, I promise, and suddenly you will like that sketch again. Third tip, this kind of goes into colouring now, we're kind of leaning into that subject, is white lines. So here's a couple of examples of where I've done that, where I've done some painting, some colourings, and I just want to distinguish shapes better, where I want them to pop out a little bit more. So I've outlined the arms here, I've outlined the drawing from the background and from things that are further out in the front to things that are further back. So you've got her arm here out in the front, I've given it a white outline so you can better tell that one thing's in the front and one thing is a little bit further back from the screen. It just helps people when they look at your drawing to distinguish features. It helps people take it in easier, it helps you take it in easier as well. Now, colouring, dun dun dun. This is the main point of the video. I was asked over on Instagram to cover this, colouring your line art. Now, there are many different ways you can do this. You can, of course, just colour in as you go. You can choose the correct colours for the different things that you are drawing. I don't really recommend this. You can change your mind halfway through. It will probably slow down the process unless you know exactly what you're doing. So I do not recommend colouring the line art as you go. So my first tip for colouring in your line art is with clipping mask. Now, this is my favourite. This is the one we're going to start off with. My favourite is clipping mask. You have your line art here and you go into your layers. You create a new layer on top of your line art. Go into that layers settings, select clipping mask. It is genuinely a mask that goes over that part of the drawing, and it'll only affect that layer beneath it. It won't affect anything else. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be colouring in on the clipping mask and it will be affecting the layer underneath. This is great. I love doing this because you can erase colours. So you can colour in over the top, and then if you don't like it, you can erase it. It won't affect the line art underneath. It is a completely separate layer, and you can adjust it as much as you like as well without affecting the rest of the line art. If you do your line art in all separate colours, you can simply switch that colour. You can go into your saturation colour settings over here, and you can simply swipe through the different colours. So it does make a lot of difference. The second way you can do it is with alpha lock. Now, this does affect the layer. So with clipping mask, not only can you colour in and erase lines and change your mind, you can also blend colours together. So you can do a blended fade from pink to blue in your line art, for example, like I've done here. It looks very nice. You can do that. You can blend colours together. Now, you can blend things together on alpha lock. So you're going to select your layer into the layers settings, go across, click alpha lock. So this time you are colouring directly onto the line art. You're not going to be colouring on a different layer. Whatever you do will affect the line line art itself. So you can colour in, you cannot erase the colour because it'll erase the line as well. It's a very, very quick way to do it. It honestly depends on the pieces that you're doing, how confident you're feeling in your choices. However, I always like that little bit more flexibility with my clipping mask. The last final thing that I like to do, and I did do this quite a lot honestly, is colour using the layers underneath. So what you want to do is change your line art into whichever colour you like best. So I commonly changed mine into a warm brown. However, of course, you can use different colours. You can use blues, you can use green, you can use whatever you like. It looks great. And you want to create that layer a little bit lighter. You don't want it to be on the darker side, because what you want to do is you want to go into the layer settings, go up to multiply, then whatever colours you add underneath will affect the layer on top. So even though all of your line art is brown, now you're colouring underneath it with green, the line art is green. So that's a fun way to colour in your line art as you do your colouring. It's a massive time saver. I did this quite a lot. Of course, you can then go in and paint on top of the layer if you want to darken any spots, or you can even, again, you can do a mix. You can do a multiply, alpha lock, and then darken some parts of the line art that you want to be a little bit darker, just to add that clarity to the drawing. However, this was a big time saver for me personally. I did all of my line art, simply switched the layer over to multiply, and then it colours in the lines as you go, which is amazing. Those are my 3 big tips for shading and colouring your line art. I hope you find these helpful, and of course, if you have any questions or anything else that you'd like me to discuss, you can find me over on Instagram. I would be happy to take a note of everything you would like me to talk about. Thank you so much for watching, my lovelies, and supporting me, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye!